Hello, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I make our childhood classics easy to understand and listen to, so you can never grow too old and always feel like a child at heart as you listen to amazing stories. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most beloved Christmas stories ever written, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This is a tale about second chances, about the power of kindness, and about how it's never too late to change. The story has 5 parts, which Dickens called staves, like verses in a song. So grab a warm drink, get cozy, and let's begin. A Christmas Carol, a storybook summary, made easy to understand. Stave 1, Marley's Ghost. The story begins. Marley was dead. There's no doubt about that at all. His burial was properly signed by everyone who mattered, the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. And Scrooge signed it too. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge and Marley had been business partners for many years. Scrooge was Marley's only friend, his only mourner, his only everything. And even Scrooge wasn't that upset about it. He went back to work on the very day of the funeral and made a good bargain out of it. Scrooge never painted over Marley's name. Even years later, above their warehouse door, it still read, Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes new people called him Scrooge, sometimes Marley, but he answered to both. It was all the same to him. Oh, but Scrooge was a tight-fisted old sinner. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old man. He was hard and sharp as flint, from which no generous fire had ever been struck. He was secret, self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. The cold inside him froze his old features, made his eyes red and his thin lips blue. He carried his own low temperature with him everywhere. He even iced his office in the middle of summer. No warmth could warm him, no cold weather chill him. No wind was bitterer than he was. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?" No beggars asked him for money, no children asked him the time. Even blind men's dogs seemed to know him. When they saw him coming, they would tug their owners into doorways, as if saying, "No eye at all is better than an evil eye, dark master." But Scrooge didn't care. That was exactly how he liked it. Christmas Eve in the counting house. On Christmas Eve, of all the good days in the year, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather and foggy too. The city clocks had only just gone 3, but it was already quite dark. Scrooge kept his office door open so he could watch his clerk, Bob Cratchit, who worked in a dismal little cell beyond. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so much smaller that it looked like just one coal. Bob couldn't add any more fuel because Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room. So Bob put on his white scarf and tried to warm himself at the candle, which didn't work at all. Suddenly, a cheerful voice called out, "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" It was Scrooge's nephew, Fred, who had come to visit. "Bah," said Scrooge. "Humbug." Fred was glowing from his walk in the fog. His face was ruddy and handsome. His eyes sparkled. "Christmas a humbug, Uncle. You don't mean that, I'm sure." "I do," said Scrooge. "Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "What right have you to be dismal?" replied Fred cheerfully. "You're rich enough." Scrooge just said bah, again and humbug. Fred tried to invite Scrooge to Christmas dinner the next day. Scrooge refused rudely. Fred asked why. He wanted nothing from Scrooge, just friendship, but Scrooge wouldn't budge. Fred left without an angry word, wishing his uncle a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He even stopped to wish the clerk a Merry Christmas too, and Bob returned the greeting warmly. "There's another fellow," muttered Scrooge, overhearing him. "My clerk with 15 shillings a week, a wife and family, talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam." The charity visitors. 2 portly gentlemen came in, holding books and papers. They were collecting money for the poor and destitute who suffered greatly at Christmas time. "Are there no prisons?" asked Scrooge. "Plenty of prisons," said the gentleman. "And the workhouses, are they still in operation?" "They are." "Still." "The treadmill and the poor law are in full vigor then," said Scrooge. Both very busy, sir. Good, said Scrooge. I'm very glad to hear it. What shall I put you down for? Nothing, Scrooge replied. You wish to be anonymous. I wish to be left alone, said Scrooge. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the prisons and workhouses. They cost enough. Those who are badly off must go there. Many can't go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die, said Scrooge, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. The gentlemen withdrew, seeing it was useless. Scrooge returned to his work with an improved opinion of himself. Marley's ghost. At last, the counting-house closed for the night. Scrooge went home to his gloomy chambers, the same rooms where Marley had once lived. He ate his melancholy dinner, read the newspapers, looked at his banker's book, and went to bed. As he was about to unlock his door, something strange happened. There, in the door knocker, without any change, he saw Marley's face. Not a knocker anymore, but Marley's face with ghostly spectacles and a livid color. It was horrible. Then it was just a knocker again. Scrooge told himself it was humbug. He went inside, checked all the rooms, locked himself in, and sat down to eat his gruel by the fire. Then he saw something else. A bell in his room began to swing. Soon, every bell in the house was ringing. Then came a clanking noise from below, like someone dragging a heavy chain over casks. It came up the stairs, straight towards his door. Marley's ghost passed right through the door and stood before him, the same face, the same Marley. He wore a chain around his middle made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses. His body was transparent. Scrooge could see through him. "How now?" said Scrooge. "What do you want with me?" "Much," said Marley's voice. "Who are you?" "Ask me who I was." "Who were you then?" "In life I was your partner, Jacob Marley." "You don't believe in me," observed the ghost. "I don't," said Scrooge. "Why do you doubt your senses?" "Because a little thing affects them," said Scrooge. "A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you." The spirit raised a frightful cry and shook its chains so loudly that Scrooge held onto his chair to keep from fainting. Then the phantom took off the bandage around its head, and its lower jaw dropped down onto its chest. Scrooge fell to his knees. "Mercy, dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me?" "It is required of every man," the ghost replied, "that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellowmen. If that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth and turned to happiness." "You are fettered," said Scrooge, trembling. "Tell me why." "I wear the chain I forged in life," replied the ghost. "I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you? Or would you know the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was full as heavy and as long as this, 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain." "Jacob," said Scrooge. "Old Jacob Marley, tell me more, speak comfort to me." "I have none to give," the ghost replied. "I cannot rest, I cannot stay, I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting-house in life. My spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole, and weary journeys lie before me." The warning. Marley's ghost told Scrooge that he was there to warn him. He still had a chance to escape Marley's fate. Scrooge would be haunted by 3 spirits. The first would come when the bell tolled 1. The second the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 had ceased to vibrate. Scrooge asked if he could just take them all at once and get it over with. The ghost said no. Then Marley's ghost floated out through the window. Scrooge followed to the window and looked out. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering about in restless haste, moaning as they went. Every one wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some were linked together. Many had been personally known to Scrooge in their lives. The misery with them all was that they had lost the power to help others. Scrooge closed the window, went straight to bed without undressing, and fell asleep instantly. Stave 2, the first of the three spirits. Waking up. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark he couldn't see anything. He listened for the church clock. To his astonishment, it went from 6 to 7, from 7 to 8, and all the way up to 12, then stopped. 12? It was past 2 when he went to bed. He checked his watch. It said 12:02. He scrambled out of bed and went to the window. It was still very foggy and extremely cold. The clock had to be right. It must be 12 at night. He'd slept through a whole day and into another night. Marley's ghost bothered him terribly. He kept going back and forth. Was it a dream or not? He remembered the ghost had warned him of a visitation when the bell tolled one. He decided to lie awake until the hour passed. The quarter hours went by slowly until at last. Ding dong, a quarter past. Ding dong, half past. Ding dong, a quarter to. Ding dong, the hour itself. The ghost of Christmas passed. Immediately, light flashed up in the room, and his bed curtains were drawn aside by a hand. Scrooge found himself face to face with a strange figure. It was like a child, yet like an old man too. Its hair was white as with age, but its face had not a wrinkle. Its arms and hands were long and muscular. It wore a white tunic with a beautiful belt. In its hand was a branch of fresh green holly, but its dress was trimmed with summer flowers, and from the crown of its head sprung a bright jet of light. It held a great extinguisher under its arm, which it used as a cap. "Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me?" asked Scrooge. I am the ghost of Christmas past." "Long past?" "No, you're past." The spirit told Scrooge he was there for his reclamation, his redemption. It told him to rise and walk with it. Scrooge protested. It was cold. He was in his night clothes. He had a cold. But the gentle grasp was not to be resisted. The spirit touched Scrooge's heart, and they passed through the wall. They stood on an open country road, with fields on either hand. The city had vanished completely. It was a clear, cold winter day. "Good heaven," said Scrooge. "I was bred in this place. I was a boy here." Scrooge's childhood. The spirit showed him the school he had attended as a boy. There, in a bare, melancholy room, a lonely boy sat reading near a feeble fire. It was Scrooge himself, his poor forgotten self. Scrooge wept to see it. "Not a latent echo in the house," the spirit said. "Not a squeak and scuffle from the mice, not a drip from the waterspout, not a sigh among the leafless boughs, but fell upon the heart of Scrooge with a softening influence and gave a freer passage to his tears." Scrooge cried out with joy at seeing characters from his childhood stories, Ali Baba, Valentine, and Orson, Robinson Crusoe, appearing in the window. He laughed and cried at the same time. "I wish," Scrooge muttered, "but it's too late now." "What is the matter?" asked the spirit. "Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something. That's all." Scrooge's sister Fan. The spirit showed Scrooge the next Christmas. He was still in the school, but his little sister Fan came to fetch him home. "I have come to bring you home, dear brother, home for good and all. Father is so much kinder than he used to be. He said yes, you should come home, and sent me in a coach to bring you. And you're to be a man and are never to come back here." "You are quite a woman, little Fan," said the boy. "She died a woman," said the ghost, "and had children." "One child," Scrooge returned. "Your nephew?" Scrooge seemed uneasy and answered briefly, "Yes." Fezziwig's Christmas party. The spirit then showed Scrooge when he was a young apprentice at old Fezziwig's warehouse. Fezziwig was a jolly old man who treated his employees well. That night, Fezziwig closed the shop early for Christmas Eve and threw a wonderful party. "Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here," cried Fezziwig. Soon the warehouse became a bright, warm ballroom. In came a fiddler. In came Mrs. Fezziwig. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs. In came all the employees. In came the housemaid, the cook, the baker, the milkman. They danced and danced and danced. During this whole time, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene. He corroborated everything, remembered everything, enjoyed everything. The spirit said it was a small matter to make these people so full of gratitude. Fezziwig had only spent a few pounds. "It isn't that," said Scrooge, heated. "He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it's impossible to count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune." He felt the spirit's glance and stopped. "What is the matter?" asked the ghost. "Nothing. I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now. That's all. The lost love." The spirit then showed Scrooge as a young man, older now, sitting by a fair young girl. This was Belle, his former fiancée. She was in tears. "It matters little," she said softly. "Another idol has displaced me, a golden one." "What then? Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I am not changed towards you." She shook her head. "When it was made, you were another man. I release you. May you be happy in the life you have chosen." She left, and they parted. "Spirit," said Scrooge, "show me no more, conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me?" "One shadow more," exclaimed the ghost. No more, I don't wish to see it." But the ghost forced him to observe what happened next. They were in another scene, a comfortable room where a beautiful young girl, the same Belle, now a married woman, sat by a fire with her daughter and many children. Soon the husband came home, laden with Christmas toys and presents, and there was shouting and playing and joyful chaos. The husband said to his wife, "I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon, Mr. Scrooge. I passed his office window. His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear, and there he sat alone, quite alone in the world, I do believe." "Spirit," said Scrooge in a broken voice, "remove me from this place. I cannot bear it." He wrestled with the spirit, trying to extinguish its light with the cap. But though he pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light. He was exhausted, overcome by drowsiness. He had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. Stave 3, the second of the three spirits. The ghost of Christmas present. Scrooge awoke in the middle of a snore as the bell struck 1. He was ready for the second spirit. He put all his bed curtains aside with his own hands and watched for the spirit's appearance. The bells struck 1, and nothing came. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour went by. Nothing. Then Scrooge realized the ghostly light was coming from the adjoining room. He got up and went to the door. "Come in," exclaimed a voice. "Come in and know me better, man." Scrooge entered. It was his own room, but transformed. The walls were hung with living green, holly, mistletoe, and ivy. A mighty fire blazed in the chimney. Heaped on the floor were turkeys, geese, game, poultry, joints of meat, sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, oysters, chestnuts, apples, oranges, pears, and bowls of punch. And sitting on this delicious mountain was a jolly giant, glorious to see, holding a glowing torch. "I am the ghost of Christmas present," said the spirit. "Look upon me." Scrooge did. The spirit wore a simple green robe bordered with white fur. Its feet were bare, and on its head was a holly wreath. It had a genial face, sparkling eyes, and a joyful air. Around its middle was an old scabbard with no sword in it. "Have you never walked forth with the younger members of my family?" pursued the ghost. "Have you had many brothers, spirit?" "More than 1,800, said the ghost. Scrooge took hold of the spirit's robe, and everything vanished. They stood in the city streets on Christmas morning. Christmas morning. The streets were full of people preparing for Christmas. The poulterers' shops were open. The grocers were full of wonderful sights and smells. The church bells called good people to worship. Soon the steeples disgorged everyone in their best clothes with their gayest faces. The spirit stood in a baker's doorway and sprinkled incense from its torch on the dinners people carried. Once or twice, when there were angry words between people who had jostled each other, the spirit shed a few drops of water on them, and their good humor was restored directly. for they said it was a shame to quarrel upon Christmas Day. The Cratchit family. The spirit took Scrooge to Bob Cratchit's house. It was a small 4-roomed home, but the ghost blessed it with a sprinkling of its torch. Mrs. Cratchit was dressed poorly but bravely in ribbons. She laid the cloth. Belinda, her daughter, helped her. Master Peter Cratchit plunged a fork into the potatoes. The 2 youngest Cratchits came tearing in, screaming that outside the baker's they had smelt the goose and known it for their own. Then Bob Cratchit came home, with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Tiny Tim was a cripple. He bore a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame. "And how did little Tim behave?" asked Mrs. Cratchit. "As good as gold," said Bob, "and better. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church, because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see." Bob's voice was tremulous. He said Tiny Tim was growing strong and hearty, but his voice trembled more. They had a wonderful dinner, a small goose, but it was magnificent to them. The plum pudding was a great success. At the end, Bob proposed a toast. "A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us," which all the family repeated. "God bless us, everyone," said Tiny Tim, the last of all. "Spirit," said Scrooge, with an interest he had never felt before, "tell me if Tiny Tim will live." "I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner," replied the ghost, "and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die." "No, no," said Scrooge. "Oh no, kind spirit, say he will be spared. If he be like to die, he had better do it and decrease the surplus population." Scrooge hung his head, hearing his own words quoted back at him, overcome with penitence and grief. "Man," said the ghost, "forbear that wicked cant until you have discovered what the surplus is and where it is. Will you decide what men shall live, what men shall die? It may be that, in the sight of heaven, you are more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child." The Cratchits toast. Then Bob raised another toast. "Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast." "The founder of the feast, indeed," cried Mrs. Cratchit. "I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon, and I hope he'd have a good appetite for it." "My dear," said Bob, "the children, Christmas Day." "It should be Christmas Day, on which one drinks the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. You know he is, Robert. Nobody knows it better than you do, poor fellow." "My dear," said Bob mildly, "Christmas Day." "I'll drink his health for your sake and the day's," said Mrs. Cratchit. "Long life to him. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy, I have no doubt." The children drank the toast after her, but it had no heartiness. Tiny Tim drank at last, but he didn't care tuppence for it. Scrooge was the ogre of the family. After the toast, they were 10 times merrier than before, from the relief of being done with Scrooge the Baleful. They told stories, sang songs, and were happy together. Tiny Tim sang a song about a lost child traveling in the snow, and sang it very well. When they faded, Scrooge had his eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim, until the last. The Spirit's journey. The Spirit took Scrooge to many places, to the houses of miners and lighthouse keepers, where even in the loneliest spots, people celebrated Christmas together. They visited a ship, where every man on board had a kinder word for another on that day. Then the Spirit took Scrooge to his nephew Fred's house, where a merry party was in full swing. They were laughing at Fred's joke about his Uncle Scrooge. "He said that Christmas was a humbug, as I live," cried Fred. "He believed it, too." "I have no patience with him," observed Scrooge's niece. "Oh, I have," said Fred. "I am sorry for him, who suffers by his ill whims, himself always. I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not, for I pity him. If it only puts him in the vein to leave his poor clerk £50, that's something." They played games, blind man's buff and forfeits, and a game called Yes and No. The answer to the game was, "Your Uncle Scrow-o-o-o-og." They all drank his health. Scrooge was so caught up in the fun that he wanted to stay longer. But the spirit said it could not be done. The children. The ghost grew older as the night went on. Its hair was now gray. It told Scrooge that its life ended at midnight. As the clock chimed 11:15, Scrooge noticed something strange protruding from the spirit's robe. It brought out two wretched children, a boy and girl, yellow, meager, ragged, scowling, wolfish. "Spirit, are they yours?" Scrooge could say no more. "They are man's," said the spirit. "This boy is ignorance. This girl is want. Beware them both, but most of all beware this boy, for on his brow I see that written which is doom, unless the writing be erased. Deny it, slander those who tell it ye, admit it for your factious purposes and make it worse, and abide the end. Have they no refuge or resource?" cried Scrooge. "Are there no prisons?" said the spirit, turning on him for the last time with his own words. "Are there no workhouses?" The bell struck 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it not. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he saw a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming towards him like a mist along the ground. We will now take a brief break from our story. We are sure you are having a lot of fun. For those of you who just joined us, welcome to my channel where we make childhood classics easy to understand and listen to. Today we're finishing our journey through Charles Dickens' beautiful Christmas story. Just a quick recap. In the last couple of minutes, Scrooge had already met two spirits, the ghost of Christmas past, who showed him his lonely childhood and lost love, and the ghost of Christmas present, who showed him the Cratchit family's humble but happy Christmas and the heartbreaking reality that Tiny Tim might not survive. Now, the third and final spirit is approaching, the most terrifying of them all. This phantom will show Scrooge what awaits him in the future if he doesn't change his ways. So let's continue with Stave 4. Stave 4, the last of the spirits. The phantom approaches. The phantom moved slowly, gravely, silently towards Scrooge. It was shrouded in a deep black garment that concealed its head, its face, its form, everything except one outstretched hand. It was tall and stately, and its mysterious presence filled Scrooge with a solemn dread. The spirit did not speak. It did not move. It only pointed. "I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come," said Scrooge. The spirit answered not, but pointed onward with its hand. "You are about to show me shadows of the things that have not happened, but will happen in the time before us," Scrooge continued. "Is that so, spirit?" The garment contracted for an instant, as if the spirit had inclined its head. That was the only answer he received. Scrooge feared this silent shape so much that his legs trembled beneath him. He knew that behind the dusky shroud, ghostly eyes were fixed upon him, but he could see nothing but a spectral hand and one great heap of black. "Ghost of the future," he exclaimed, "I fear you more than any specter I have seen, but as I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear you company and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me?" No reply. The hand pointed straight ahead. "Lead on," said Scrooge. "Lead on. The night is waning fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, spirit." The businessmen's talk. The phantom moved away, and Scrooge followed in the shadow of its dress. They scarcely seemed to enter the city. Rather, the city seemed to spring up about them. They were in the heart of it, on the exchange, amongst the merchants. The spirit stopped beside a little knot of businessmen. Scrooge advanced to listen. "No," said a great fat man with a monstrous chin. "I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead." "When did he die?" inquired another. "Last night, I believe." "Why, what was the matter with him?" asked a third. "I thought he'd never die." "God knows," said the first with a yawn. "What has he done with his money?" asked a red-faced gentleman. "I haven't heard. Left it to his company, perhaps. He hasn't left it to me. That's all I know." This was received with a general laugh. "It's likely to be a very cheap funeral," said the same speaker. "I don't know of anybody to go to it. Suppose we make up a party and volunteer." Scrooge knew these men. He had always made a point of standing well in their esteem. But they were talking about someone's death with such cold indifference, as if it meant nothing at all. More businessmen. The phantom glided on into another street. Its finger pointed to two men meeting. Scrooge listened again. He knew these men too, men of business, very wealthy and important. "How are you?" said one. "How are you?" returned the other. "Well, Old Scratch has got his own at last, hey?" "So I am told. Cold, isn't it?" "Seasonable for Christmas time. You're not a skater, I suppose?" No. Something else to think of. Good morning." That was their whole conversation. Scrooge was confused. Why would the spirit show him such trivial conversations? But he felt they must have some hidden purpose, so he resolved to treasure up every word and everything he saw. He looked about for his own image in his accustomed corner at the exchange, but another man stood in his place. His usual time of day for being there had passed, and he saw no likeness of himself among the multitudes. He thought this meant his new resolutions were already taking effect. The pawn shop. The phantom led Scrooge into an obscure part of town where he had never been before, a place of foul and narrow ways, wretched shops and houses, half-naked, drunken people. In a low-browed shop, an old man sat by a charcoal stove, surrounded by piles of rusty keys, nails, chains, and refuse iron. 3 people entered, each carrying a bundle. The first was a charwoman, a cleaning woman. The second was a laundress, a washerwoman. The third was an undertaker's man. They had all come to sell things they had stolen from a dead man, a man who had just died alone, with nobody to care for him. "Let the charwoman alone to be the first," cried she who had entered first. "Let the laundress alone to be the second, and let the undertaker's man alone to be the third. Look here, old Joe, here's a chance." Old Joe opened the bundles. There were bed curtains, sheets, towels, wearing apparel, silver teaspoons, sugar tongs, boots, a seal or two, a pencil case, a pair of sleeve buttons, and a brooch. The charwoman had even taken the shirt off the dead man's back. "Bed curtains," said Joe. "You don't mean to say you took 'em down, rings and all, with him lying there?" "Yes, I do," replied the woman. "Why not?" "You were born to make your fortune," said Joe. "I certainly shan't hold my hand when I can get anything in it by reaching it out, for the sake of such a man as he was. He isn't likely to take cold without 'em, I dare say." The dead man. Scrooge listened to this dialogue in horror. They were selling the possessions of a dead man, a man who had frightened everyone away from him when he was alive, so that no one cared about him now that he was dead. "Spirit," said Scrooge, shuddering. I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way now. Merciful heaven, what is this?" The scene changed. Now Scrooge almost touched a bed, a bare, uncurtained bed, on which beneath a ragged sheet there lay a something covered up. A pale light fell straight upon the bed, and on it, plundered and bereft, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this man. Scrooge wanted to lift the sheet and see the face, but he had no power to do it. He looked at the phantom, whose steady hand was pointed to the head. Oh, cold, rigid, dreadful death. But if it had been a loved, revered, and honored head, a hand that was open, generous, and true, a heart brave, warm, and tender, then death would be different. For such a person, good deeds would spring from the wound to sow the world with life immortal. Scrooge thought, if this man could be raised up now, what would be his foremost thoughts? Avarice, hard-dealing, griping cares. They have brought him to a rich end, truly. He lay in the dark, empty house, with not a man, woman, or child to say he was kind to me in this or that. A cat was tearing at the door. Rats gnawed beneath the hearthstone. Scrooge did not dare to think what they wanted in the room of death. "Spirit," he said, "this is a fearful place. In leaving it, I shall not leave its lesson, trust me. Let us go." The debtor's wife. The phantom spread its dark robe before him for a moment, then withdrew it. They were in a room by daylight, where a mother and her children were. She was expecting someone with anxious eagerness. She walked up and down, started at every sound, looked out the window, glanced at the clock. At length, the long-expected knock was heard. She hurried to the door and met her husband, a young man whose face was careworn and depressed. "Is it good," she said, "or bad?" "Bad," he answered. "We are quite ruined." "No, there is hope yet, Caroline." "If he relents," she said. "There is. Nothing is past hope if such a miracle has happened." "He is past relenting," said her husband. "He is dead." She was a mild and patient creature, and she was thankful in her soul to hear it. She prayed forgiveness the next moment, but the first was the emotion of her heart. The man explained that he had tried to see their creditor to obtain a week's delay, but the man was dying, and now he was dead. Their debt would be transferred to someone else, but before that time they would be ready with the money. "We may sleep tonight with light hearts, Caroline," said her husband. Yes, their hearts were lighter. The children's faces were brighter. It was a happier house for this man's death. The only emotion the ghost could show Scrooge caused by this death was one of pleasure. Tiny Tim's death. "Let me see some tenderness connected with a death," said Scrooge. "Or that dark chamber's spirit, which we left just now, will be forever present to me." The ghost conducted him through several streets. They entered poor Bob Cratchit's house, the same dwelling they had visited before, and found the mother and children seated round the fire. Quiet, very quiet. The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner. The mother and her daughters were sewing, but surely they were very quiet. The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face. "The color hurts my eyes," she said. "The color? Ah, poor Tiny Tim." "They're better now again," said Mrs. Cratchit. "It must be near his time." "Past it rather," Peter answered. "But I think he has walked a little slower than he used, these last few evenings, Mother." They were very quiet again. At last Mrs. Cratchit said, in a steady voice that only faltered once, "I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder, very fast indeed." "And so have I," cried Peter. "Often." "And so have I," exclaimed another. "So had all." "But he was very light to carry," she resumed, "and his father loved him so that it was no trouble. And there is your father at the door." She hurried out to meet him. Little Bob and his comforter came in. His tea was ready for him, and they all tried who should help him to it most. Then the two young Cratchits got upon his knees and laid each a little cheek against his face, as if they said, "Don't mind it, father. Don't be grieved." Bob was very cheerful with them and spoke pleasantly to all the family. He said they would be done with their work long before Sunday. "Sunday? You went today then, Robert," said his wife. "Yes, my dear, I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is, but you'll see it often. I promised him that I would walk there on a Sunday. My little child," cried Bob. "My little child." He broke down all at once. He couldn't help it. He left the room and went upstairs into the room above, which was lighted cheerfully and hung with Christmas. There was a chair set close beside the child, and signs of someone having been there lately. Poor Bob sat down in it, and when he had thought a little and composed himself, he kissed the little face. He was reconciled to what had happened and went down again quite happy. They drew about the fire and talked. Bob told them of the extraordinary kindness of Mr. Scrooge's nephew, who had met him in the street that day and asked what had happened to distress him. "I'm heartily sorry for it, Mr. Cratchit," he had said. "If I can be of service to you in any way, that's where I live. Pray come to me." "I'm sure he's a good soul," said Mrs. Cratchit. "You would be surer of it, my dear," returned Bob, "if you saw and spoke to him. I shouldn't be at all surprised if he got Peter a better situation." "And I know," said Bob, "I know, my dears, that when we recollect how patient and how mild he was, although he was a little child, we shall not quarrel easily among ourselves and forget poor Tiny Tim in doing it." "No, never, father," they all cried again. "I am very happy," said little Bob. "I am very happy. Spirit of Tiny Tim, thy childish essence was from God." "The grave." "Spectre," said Scrooge, "something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. Tell me what man that was whom we saw lying dead." The ghost led him to a churchyard, a worthy place, walled in by houses, overrun by grass and weeds. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. "Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point," said Scrooge, "answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only?" Still the ghost pointed downward. "Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends, to which, if persevered in, they must lead," said Scrooge. "But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me." The spirit was immovable. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge. The plea. "Am I that man who lay upon the bed?" he cried, upon his knees. The finger pointed from the grave to him, and back again. "No, spirit, oh no, no." The finger still was there. "Spirit," he cried, clutching at its robe, "hear me, I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been but for this intercourse. Why show me this if I am past all hope?" For the first time, the hand appeared to shake. "Good spirit," he pursued, falling down before it, "your nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I yet may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life." The kind hand trembled. "I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone." In his agony, he caught the spectral hand. It sought to free itself, but he was strong in his entreaty and detained it. The spirit, stronger yet, repulsed him. Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Stave 5, the end of it. Christmas morning. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own, to make amends in. "I will live in the past, the present, and the future," Scrooge repeated, scrambling out of bed. "The spirits of all three shall strive within me. O Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob on my knees." He was so fluttered and so glowing with his good intentions that his broken voice would scarcely answer to his call. He had been sobbing violently in his conflict with the spirit, and his face was wet with tears. "They are not torn down," cried Scrooge, folding one of his bed curtains in his arms. "They are here, I am here. The shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be, I know they will." His hands were busy with his garments all this time, turning them inside out, putting them on upside down, tearing them, mislaying them. He didn't know what he was doing, but he was happy. "I don't know what to do," cried Scrooge, laughing and crying in the same breath. "I am as light as a feather, I am as happy as an angel, I am as merry as a schoolboy, I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody, a Happy New Year to all the world. Hallow here, whoop, hallow." He frisked into the sitting room and stood there, perfectly winded. He pointed to the saucepan, the door, the corner, the window, everywhere the spirits had been. "It's all right, it's all true, it all happened. Ha ha ha." For a man who had been out of practice for so many years, it was a splendid laugh, a most illustrious laugh. The bells. He was checked in his transports by the churches ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard. Clash, clang, hammer, ding, dong, bell. Oh, glorious, glorious. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist. Clear, bright, jovial, stirring, cold, cold piping for the blood to dance to. Golden sunlight, heavenly sky, sweet fresh air, merry bells. Oh, glorious, glorious. "What's today?" cried Scrooge, calling down to a boy in Sunday clothes. Returned the boy. "What's today, my fine fellow?" "Today, why, Christmas Day." "It's Christmas Day," said Scrooge to himself. "I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. Of course they can. Hallow, my fine fellow." "Hallow," returned the boy. "Do you know the poulterers, in the next street but one at the corner?" "I should hope I did," replied the lad. An intelligent boy, a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one. What, the one as big as me? Returned the boy. What a delightful boy, said Scrooge. Yes, my buck. It's hanging there now, replied the boy. Is it? Go and buy it. Tell him to bring it here. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown. The boy was off like a shot. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's, whispered Scrooge, rubbing his hands and splitting with a laugh. He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. What a joke sending it to Bob's will be. He wrote the address. His hand was not steady, but he wrote it somehow, and went downstairs to open the street door. As he stood there waiting, the knocker caught his eye. I shall love it as long as I live, cried Scrooge, patting it. What an honest expression it has in its face. It's a wonderful knocker. Here's the turkey. Hallo, whoop, how are you? Merry Christmas. It was a turkey. The bird was huge. It would snap its legs in a minute, like sticks of sealing wax, if it tried to stand. Why, it's impossible to carry that to Camden Town, said Scrooge. You must have a cab. The chuckle with which he said this, and the chuckle with which he paid for the turkey, and the chuckle with which he paid for the cab, and the chuckle with which he recompensed the boy, were only to be exceeded by the chuckle with which he sat down breathless in his chair again, and chuckled till he cried. Out in the world. Shaving was not an easy task, for his hand continued to shake, but if he had cut the end of his nose off, he would have put a piece of sticking plaster over it and been quite satisfied. He dressed himself all in his best and got out into the streets. The people were pouring forth, as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present. Walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant that 3 or 4 good-humored fellows said, "Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you." And Scrooge said often afterwards that of all the blithe sounds he had ever heard, those were the blithest in his ears. He met the portly gentleman who had come to his counting-house yesterday for charity. "My dear sir," said Scrooge, taking him by both hands, "how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir." "Mr. Scrooge." "Yes, that is my name, and I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your pardon, and will you have the goodness—" Here Scrooge whispered in his ear. "Lord bless me," cried the gentleman. "My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?" "If you please, not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favor?" "My dear sir," said the other, shaking hands with him, "I don't know what to say to such munify." "Don't say anything, please," retorted Scrooge. "Come and see me. Will you come and see me?" "I will," cried the old gentleman. And it was clear he meant to do it. He went to church and walked about the streets and watched the people hurrying to and fro, and patted children on the head and questioned beggars, and looked down into the kitchens of houses and up to the windows, and found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that any walk could give him so much happiness. At Fred's house. In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock, but he made a dash and did it. "Is your master at home, my dear?" said Scrooge to the girl. "Yes, sir." "Where is he, my love?" "He's in the dining-room, sir, along with mistress." "Thank ye, he knows me." "I'll go in here, my dear." He turned the door gently and sidled his face in round the door. They were looking at the table, which was spread out in great array. "Fred," said Scrooge. Dear heart alive, how his niece by marriage started. Scrooge had forgotten for the moment about her sitting in the corner with the footstool, or he wouldn't have done it on any account. "Why, bless my soul," cried Fred. "Who's that?" "It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?" "Let him in. It is a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. His niece looked just the same. So did Topper when he came. So did the plump sister when she came. So did everyone. Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful unanimity, wonderful happiness. At the office. But he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late, that was the thing he had set his heart upon. And he did it, yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob, a quarter past. No Bob. He was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open so he could see him come into the tank. Bob's hat was off before he opened the door, his comforter too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen, as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock. "Hallo," growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice, as near as he could feign it. "What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?" "I am very sorry, sir," said Bob. "I am behind my time." "You are? Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you please." "It's only once a year, sir," pleaded Bob. "It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir." "Now, I'll tell you what, my friend," said Scrooge. "I am not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore," he continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he staggered back into the tank again, "and therefore I am about to raise your salary." Bob trembled and got a little nearer to the ruler. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down with it and calling for help. "A Merry Christmas, Bob," said Scrooge, with an earnestness that could not be mistaken, clapping him on the back. "A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop, Bob. Make up the fires and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit." The happy ending. Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh and little heeded them. He was wise enough to know that nothing ever happened on this globe for good at which some people did not have their fill of laughter. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, and it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, every one. Ah, what an epic story. Key themes and lessons from this classic. 1. It's never too late to change. Scrooge is an old man who has been miserable and selfish his whole life, but one night changes everything. The story shows that no matter how old you are, no matter how stuck in your ways, you can always choose to be better. 2. The true wealth is in human connection. Scrooge is rich, but he's utterly poor in love, friendship, and kindness. He learns that the real treasures in life aren't money. They're the people we care about and who care about us. 3. Greed destroys the soul. Marley's ghost wears a heavy chain he forged in life, made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, and ledgers. Every selfish act adds another link. The story warns us that living only for money chains us to our own misery. 4. We are all connected. Scrooge learns that mankind is his business, not just money. The poor, the sick, the lonely, they are all our neighbors. We have a responsibility to help each other. 5 children are precious. Tiny Tim represents innocence, hope, and the future. Scrooge's cold-hearted words about decreasing the surplus population come back to haunt him. The story reminds us to protect and cherish the young. 6. Actions have consequences. The ghost of Christmas yet to come shows Scrooge what his future will be if he doesn't change, dying alone, unmourned, with thieves stealing his belongings. Every choice we make shapes our destiny. 7. Charity is a duty. Scrooge's refusal to give to the poor shows his hardness of heart. By the end, he gives generously and joyfully. True Christmas spirit is about caring for those who have less. 8. Family matters. Scrooge rejects his nephew Fred and isolates himself. He learns that family love and connection are precious. Fred's persistence in loving his grumpy uncle is inspiring. 9. Joy is contagious. Laughter and good cheer spread like a beautiful infection. Scrooge's transformation brings joy to everyone around him: the Cratchits, his nephew, the charity workers, even strangers in the street. 10. Christmas is a time for opening our hearts. The story reminds us that Christmas is special because it's the one time of year when people open their shut-up hearts freely and think of others as fellow passengers to the grave, not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. Final thoughts. A Christmas Carol is more than just a ghost story. It's a story about second chances. It's about the power of love and kindness to transform even the hardest heart. It's about looking back at our past, seeing our present clearly, and choosing a better future. When Scrooge wakes up on Christmas morning and discovers it's not too late, we all feel that same joy. Every one of us has the power to change. Every one of us can choose kindness over selfishness, generosity over greed, love over isolation. The story is a gift to the world, a reminder that the true spirit of Christmas lives in all of us, all year round. As Tiny Tim said, God bless us, everyone. 10 fascinating facts about A Christmas Carol. 1. Written in just 6 weeks. Charles Dickens wrote this beloved classic in a feverish burst of creativity. He started in October 1843 and finished by the end of November, just 6 weeks. 2. Dickens wrote it to pay off debts. Dickens was struggling financially when he wrote this book. He had a large family to support and was in debt. The book was a financial lifeline. 3. It was an instant bestseller. A Christmas Carol sold out its first printing of 6,000 copies in just 5 days. It has never been out of print since. 4. Dickens called it his little Christmas book. He worked incredibly hard on it and thought of it as a special gift to his readers. He wanted to raise the ghost of an idea that would haunt people pleasantly. 5. It brought back Christmas traditions. The book helped revive many Christmas traditions that were fading: family gatherings, feasting, and charitable giving. It also popularized the phrase, Merry Christmas. 6. Based on Dickens's own childhood. The lonely boy Scrooge sees in the schoolroom is based on Dickens's own experience. His father was sent to debtor's prison, and young Charles had to work in a factory at age 12. 7. The first Christmas Carol was written in the 1400s. Dickens didn't invent the Christmas Carol tradition, but his book helped cement its place in popular culture. The title itself uses the musical term, stave. 8. Tiny Tim was inspired by Dickens's disabled nephew. Dickens's nephew Harry was a disabled child. The character of Tiny Tim came from Dickens's observations of children with disabilities and his sympathy for them. 9. It's been adapted more than 50 times. A Christmas Carol has been adapted for film, television, theater, and opera more than 50 times. It's one of the most frequently adapted stories in history. 10. Dickens publicly performed it. Dickens loved performing readings of A Christmas Carol. He would give dramatic, animated readings to huge audiences, sometimes acting out all the characters himself. The end. This completes our journey through Charles Dickens' beloved classic. May we all keep Christmas in our hearts, not just one day a year, but all the days of our lives. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and always remember in Plato's wise words, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle.